It is being reported that a Palestinian delegation is traveling to Washington in an effort to mend fences with the Trump administration. Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas has boycotted President Trump since December the 6th of 2017, when the president announced America's recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Does this signal Abbas's willingness to return to the peace table? I want to talk to you today about Mideast Peace 2019. First of all, let's talk about the prophecy of the final 7 years. The Bible prophesies that a peace agreement will be signed between Palestinians and Israelis. This agreement will put the Palestinians in control of much of Judea, which is the West Bank, and will place the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement between Muslims and Jews. The peace deal will also allow the Jews to build their third temple on the Temple Mount without disturbing the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The signing of this peace agreement will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the physical second coming of Jesus to the earth. It will be the greatest prophetic fulfillment in 2,000 years. First of all, a brief history just to bring us up to date. Many have tried to negotiate a peace agreement between Israelis and the Arabs since the modern state of Israel was born in 1948. All the attempts have failed. Before his election as president, Donald Trump said his number one goal as president would be to achieve a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians. He said if successful, it would be the ultimate deal. Once elected, President Trump renamed the deal he hoped to achieve the deal of the century. The first week after his inauguration, the president appointed his two most trusted aides, son-in-law Jared Kushner and personal lawyer Jason Greenblatt, to lead the peace effort. Kushner and Greenblatt plunged into the task with all their might. In the first 7 months, they visited Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas 20 times. That's more than an average of 3 times a month. They also visited Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu continually during this time period. Kushner and Greenblatt offered no suggestions to the two leaders. They simply asked questions of every conceivable obstacle that needed to be overcome. They wanted to get a thorough understanding of the Palestinian positions and the Israeli positions on every aspect of the conflict. Finally, around the 1st of September 2017, Mahmoud Abbas said to the peace team that he and Netanyahu had answered all their questions and that there was nothing remaining to discuss. He stated that it was time for America to present a peace deal, a peace plan in light of all they had learned. President Trump promised to put forth his plan within 3 or 4 months. When the month of December rolled around, anticipation for the American plan was building. Then the unexpected happened. recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Before his election, candidate Trump had adamantly promised that he would move the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama had made the same promise, but they all reneged when it came time to do it. Trump said that while others had broken their promises, he would keep his. The first deadline to move the embassy was June 2017. Trump said he wanted to wait to see if he could get the peace deal done before he actually decided to recognize Jerusalem as the capital. So he said once the peace deal is reached, that he would then make the move. However, he signed the waiver allowing him to delay the Jerusalem Embassy Act. Many Americans and Israelis thought, just like another politician, like all the rest, when the next deadline to obey the Jerusalem Embassy Act came in December, everyone expected another waiver to be signed. However, on December the 6th, 2017, President Trump announced that the U.S. was recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and would be moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. It was a dramatic event. We're going to see what happens next.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Have you had a longing to visit the cities where Jesus healed, ministered, and taught every day? Judy and I would like to invite you to travel to the wonderful land of Israel. Experience the Word of God in vivid color while walking down the roads of the Holy Land with us.
When you are ready to experience Israel, we recommend you travel with Endtime Ministries. You will not only experience historical and present-day Israel, you will also learn about the prophesied future to come. It's as if we traveled back in time to visit a different era and discovered ourselves in an ancient time. The tour is very well organized, the accommodations are first class, and the food is delicious. If you have ever had a desire to visit Israel, there is no better time than now. Ann from Colorado.
To sign up to receive your Experience Israel 2019 packet, call Adrian or Jana at 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com. We can't wait to experience Israel with you.
When President Trump made his announcement that the U.S. was recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and that we would move our embassy there, Mahmoud Abbas responded in rage. He suspended all communications with the Trump administration. So after this announcement that the U.S. was recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, Mahmoud Abbas was in a fit of rage. From December the 6th of 2017 to this present time, Abbas has continued to avoid communication with the Trump administration. After Abbas continued his boycott of the United States, President Trump decided to cut the huge amounts of money the U.S. was voluntarily giving to the Palestinian people. Now, this included $200 million annually for U.S. aid for programs largely going to Gaza, $300 million annually in funding for the UN Relief and Works Agency, better known as UNRWA, which provides education, health care, and food aid for more than 5 million Palestinians. And he suspended $25 million in support from hospitals in East Jerusalem. Trump asked why America should give upwards to $750 million annually to a people that wouldn't even speak to the U.S. government. The Trump administration ordered the closure of the Palestinian diplomatic mission in Washington on Monday, September the 10th of 2018. Now, the next thing that happened was Israel pulled its funding from the Palestinians from the program called Pay for Slay. That's what the Israelis call it. Israel collects customs duties on behalf of the Palestinian Authority under the interim agreements of the Oslo Accords signed back in 1993. Sums thought to amount to $222 million a month. From this monthly revenue, the Palestinian Authority pays a monthly income to Palestinian terrorists who have died or are being held in Israeli prisons for killing Jews. Israeli people and politicians call this practice pay for slay. On February 17th, the Israeli cabinet approved a bill to deduct $138 million from the Palestinian Authority's tax revenues. Now, this is per month. The amount Israeli officials calculated that the PA pays monthly to Palestinian prisoners and their families. Israel withheld the $138 million and sent the balance to the Palestinian Authority. Mahmoud Abbas rejected this arrangement, saying that the families of their martyrs needed to be supported. He has refused to accept any of the money unless Israel gives them all they feel are rightfully theirs. However, Israel sees this as supporting terrorists who kill Jews, which of course it is. That's the reason they have dubbed the practice pay for slay. These tax transfers from Israel cover roughly 2/3 of the Palestinian government's budget monthly. Between this source of income drying up and America suspending its contributions to the Palestinians are saying they could soon be forced into bankruptcy. Some have even speculated this financial crisis could result in the toppling of Abbas from power. So what's going on with the American peace plan in the meantime? In December of 2018, the Trump administration announced that the American peace plan was ready for release. However, on December the 24th of 2018, Israel's government was dissolved and new elections were scheduled for April the 9th of 2019. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu asked Trump to not present his peace plan until Israel's elections were over. The Trump administration complied with Netanyahu's request. When the election results came in, Netanyahu's Likud party captured the most seats in the Knesset. However, Netanyahu was unable to put together a coalition of at least 61 seats required to establish a government. Finally, after 2 months of feverish negotiations, new elections were scheduled for September the 17th of 2019. So Israel's going to have elections in April, turn right around and have new elections in September. Many Israelis are starting to believe the only path to a new government will be a national coalition government in which Netanyahu would share power with the more liberal Blue and White Party. The Blue and White Party favors settling the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by a two-state solution and sharing land for peace. If the Likud Party and the Blue and White Party did establish a national unity government, this would enable the establishment of a Palestinian state and make a peace agreement much more likely. The right-wing parties that were members of Netanyahu's last government would never agree to the establishment of a Palestinian state, knowing that, according to the prophecies, a peace agreement is coming. A national unity government seems more and more likely. We will know more after the new elections scheduled for September the 17th. Next step, Trump decides to release half of his peace plan. Remember, he had it ready in December. Now then, here we are. Elections have happened. They haven't worked. Now new elections are coming. How long would America wait? Well, the Trump administration did not want to wait for the formation of Israel's next government before moving forward with its peace plan. Jared Kushner announced that the economic half of the U.S. peace plan would be released and an economic conference would be held in Bahrain on June the 25th and 26th. The conference was to be called the Peace to Prosperity Summit. The Trump administration's $50 billion Middle East economic plan, which they released a few days before the conference so everyone could be reading it in advance, it calls for the creation of a global investment fund to lift the Palestinian and neighboring Arab states' economies, and for construction of a $5 billion transportation corridor to connect the West Bank and Gaza. Presently, their properties are not contiguous. So in order to get from the West Bank to Gaza, you really can't without going through a lot of checkpoints. Now, Kushner said this huge economic infusion, we're talking about $50 billion, could turn the Palestinian areas into the Singapore of the Middle East. They were discussing an international airport, an international seaport. They talked about running an oil pipeline from Saudi Arabia down into Gaza and building 2 oil refineries. Well, they have over a 50% unemployment rate in Gaza, and to bring in those kinds of high-paying jobs would indeed be a dream. Well, America's hope was that these huge economic incentives would entice Arab nations surrounding the Palestinians to pressure Mahmoud Abbas to come to the peace table. So when the Peace to Prosperity Summit convened, first of all, Kushner, the week before, visited Europe and the different Arab nations, urging them to attend the conference. When the conference convened, 20 countries were in attendance, including Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, and Oman, in spite of Abbas's urging them to boycott the summit. So they choose their association with the United States rather than their association with the Palestinians. I'm sure this screamed loud and clear to where the surrounding Arab states really stood, and I'm sure that Abbas got the message. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were also in attendance because they are right in the middle of huge projects like this when it comes to world finance. Since Abbas boycotted the meeting, it was decided that Israel would not be officially invited either, since the desire was to keep the summit apolitical. However, 15 Palestinian businessmen did attend the conference, along with a number of Israeli business people. Now, this enraged Mahmoud Abbas, and as soon as the Palestinians got back to the Palestinian territories, Abbas ordered the arrest of these Palestinians who attended the Bahrain conference because he had forbidden anyone from going. Now, there was no law against them going, but Abbas doesn't need laws. He pretty much rules as a dictator anyway. When the Palestinian businessmen who attended the Peace to Prosperity Conference returned home, one was arrested, and Palestinian forces attempted to arrest several of the others. The one who was arrested was released the next day after extreme American pressure. It appears that Abbas is getting ready to end his boycott of the United States. Now think about this. With the U.S. being one of the Palestinians' main supporters, and yet the Palestinians have boycotted the U.S. for a year and a half. Now it looks like that Abbas is getting ready to move toward reconciliation. A senior official in Ramallah told the Israel Hayom newspaper that mutual messages have been sent recently between Ramallah, which is serving right now as the Palestinian capital, and Washington, D.C., in order to straighten things out and end PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas's boycott of President Donald Trump and his representatives, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner, and Special Envoy Jason Greenblatt. According to the report, one reason for the Palestinian Authority's change of heart could be its disappointment with the Arab countries which agreed to participate in the U.S.-led Bahrain conference, despite Abbas's pleas to boycott it. Given that one of the goals of the conference was to exert pressure on Abbas to end the boycott, it seems that the move was successful. Now, when the political portion of the Middle East peace plan can be revealed, when will it be released? Well, this late-breaking report from the Haaretz news service out of Israel tells us that the Trump administration will announce its next steps in the Israeli-Palestinian arena as soon as next week. Son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner said. Kushner said that the administration's, the Israeli-Palestinian peace plan team, which he leads, is still working on the plan's political chapter following the release of the economic chapter before the Bahrain conference last month. Kushner repeated that the plan will address all the core issues of the conflict, including the refugee question. He said that the Palestinian Authority made a strategic mistake when it boycotted the economic conference in Bahrain last month, and he accused the Palestinian leadership of hysteria. He added that the administration was still interested in working with the Palestinian Authority and that President Trump likes Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. So that brings us to where we are right now. What should we do? Now, there's another major factor I want to bring to you for just a moment. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain all are Sunni Muslim countries. Iran is Shia Muslim. Iran wants to rule the entire Middle East. The only defense Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan and Egypt have against Iran, because Russia sides with Iran, the only defense that these Arab states have is an alliance with Israel and the United States. So they are much more concerned with their self-preservation than they are with bowing at the whims of Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. So now we see that the Palestinian issue, which has been front and center since the birth of Israel in 1948, is no longer first in the minds of the Arab nations surrounding the Palestinians. All right, I want to ask you this question. If we could be on the brink, and by the way, Kushner has said they could release the political plan very shortly, because what's happening is everybody heard the economic plan, they got all excited, and they said, let's do this thing. But you can't have the economic plan without solving the political conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. So the pressure is on to go ahead and release the entire plan. Kushner said this could happen as early as next week. Well, with the elections coming up in September, could it be that the liberals and the conservatives would unite in Israel, thus making it easy for, for Netanyahu to forge a peace deal with the Palestinians and allowing him to compromise in ways he could not compromise while he was locked into a government with the extreme right? I cannot tell you for sure that's exactly where we're headed, but I can tell you the Bible prophesies a Middle East peace agreement. And when that Middle East peace agreement happens, and it will happen, the prophecies always come to pass, when that happens, we would be plunged into the final 7 years immediately preceding the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ. So what should we do? What should you do? By now you know that we have a course called the Jerusalem Prophecy College. You can enroll in this course. It will give you all the information that you need in order to cope with the final 7 years. What do? Go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com. Register, enroll, prepare yourself. We're on the brink of something historic and prophetic.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
If ever people needed to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for Endtime magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will impact your life. Endtime has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that Endtime magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and lead them in doctor's offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine has done in many lives. Call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and get your subscription today.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
Welcome back to End of the Age, and we will be taking your calls in this segment of the program. By the way, I'd like to pause to thank all of you for your patience with me during this time of sickness I've been wrestling with. I also want to thank Dave Robbins for doing such a splendid job in filling in for me at this program over the last 2 weeks or so. We appreciate that very, very much. And also, I've received so many get well cards. I've received so many messages from you out there that you are praying for me. Well, as you can see, I'm almost well. So I'm really glad to be back at this microphone. I've been doing this When did we start? 1998. So here we are. We're going on 21 years of broadcasting Monday through Friday for 21 solid years. Obviously, being away from it until Dave began to help me, I was on the air every single day for the last 20 or so years. And it feels really good to be back with you today. So if you have questions or comments, you can start calling right now. The number to call is 877-Endtime to be on the air with me. If you need to reach our operators, then that number is 1-800-Endtime. Now, before we go to the phones, I do want to emphasize one more time. If you are not yet enrolled in the Jerusalem Prophecy College, I know that I have pushed this vigorously because I know it's the very best thing you could do to prepare yourself. You do not need to be sort of prepared. You need to be thoroughly prepared for the times that are just ahead. Just imagine with me for a moment. Let's just say the elections are September the 17th. Let's say that the government will be formed by November in Israel. And then let's say that all these pieces would come together. Trump's political portion of his peace plan would be put out there. Agreements could be struck. The odds are pretty high that yet in 2019 or maybe in 2020, they could sign this peace agreement. Now, I'm not overstating anything when I tell you that this peace agreement will be the greatest prophetic fulfillment in 2,000 years. Think about that. 2,000 years. Greater than the establishment of the nation of Israel. Greater than World War I, World War II. Greater than many other things we have witnessed. Because it is going to be that impacting. It is the one prophecy we have with a specific date attached to it. The Bible teaches that when this agreement is signed, it will trigger the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. So let's say that starts in 2019 or early 2020. Are you ready for that? I'm seriously asking you. Do you really feel today that you are ready to ride out the final 7 years? Not just ride out, but to implement the final 7 years, because the Bible teaches it will contain the greatest revival the world has ever seen. It's going to be both a Jewish revival and a Gentile revival. Now, I'm not talking about some pseudo-revival. I'm talking about a genuine revival, just like you can read about in the book of Acts. If you've never sat down and read the book of Acts, I would encourage you to do that this week, because that's the kind of revival that we are getting ready to have as soon as they sign this peace agreement. So thanks again to all of you for your prayers. Thank you for your continuing financial support as we continue to publish Endtime magazine, to conduct the Jerusalem Prophecy College, to be on radio, to be on television, and all the social media things that we do in order to keep people aware of what's going on. All right, well, with all that said, so glad to be back, and let's go quickly to the phones now. Jim in the truck is calling. Hello, Jim.
Irvin, welcome back, sir. I've been praying a lot for you, and it's good to see you back on. God bless you, sir.
I appreciate it very much, Jim.
Amen. You know, I've been talking with people on Endtime 1000, and some of the people from England are a little concerned because they're looking for churches that are not pre-trib, and people are actually giving them the hairy eyeball. And I was talking to one person and told them what they need to do would be to come to the United States, because I've heard you say it. It's going to be the safest place now. During the last 7 years, when we come to Israel as the wings of an eagle for a time and a half, a time to protect Israel in their place, we're going to be here. So no matter what happens with World War III, that 2.5 billion people will be eradicated, we're going to be here. Now, look what's going on in France. France is gone, okay? All of Europe is going to be taken in by this Muslim way of thinking. They're not defending themselves from it. What do you think about all that?
You know, Jim, It's going to be worse than that, actually, because the Antichrist will have his power base in Europe. And it may not just be Muslim. It's going to be false Christianity. The Bible prophesies there will be an alliance between the powers of Europe and false Christianity. And so they're going to build this rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire. And that's the reason every one of you out there that have Jewish friends in Europe or around the world, I would urge you to contact them, talk to them, and urge them to either move to Israel or move to the United States of America. Those are the two places that we know there will be a measure of safety for them. Jim, thank you very much for the phone call. Appreciate it very much. Let's go now to Texas. Gary's calling from Texas. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Irvin. I'm so glad you're doing better, and I'm glad you're back on the air.
Thank you very much.
My question is for those Christians taken up in the rapture, what actually happens to their physical bodies?
Their physical body will be transformed from mortal to immortal. Like, for instance, the Bible says that we will have a body like Jesus had after his resurrection. There was no physical body left in that tomb. It was transformed from physical to immortal. That's exactly what's going to happen to us. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that we will be changed from mortal to immortality in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. And then we will be caught up to meet Jesus in the air. So that's what's going to happen.
Okay. Well, that certainly explains it, and I sure appreciate your explanation.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling, Gary. Appreciate the phone call very much. Now let's go to Ohio. Derek is calling from Ohio. Hello, Derek.
Hey, Brother Baxter, how you doing? Glad to hear you back on your post again.
Thank you very much.
Question. You know the prophecy in Daniel 7 or Daniel 9 where it talks about the 10 horns?
Yes.
And 3 will be taken down.
Yes.
Now, with what's happening with Theresa May and looks like Angela Merkel going through her health problems, we don't know the fullness of that. Would you possibly consider two of the 3? What's your take on that?
You know, Derek, I would be reluctant to say that right now. Here's what we do know. We do know that on November the 7th of last year, 2018, that this new organization called the European Intervention Initiative, it's a military alliance, was formed. And there were 10 members at that time. We've been waiting for years to see the emergence of the 10-horn kingdom because the prophecy says these horns are 10 kings, but they're part of one kingdom. So they're going to be part of some kind of an alliance. It appears that the 10-horn kingdom was born on November the 7th. So then the Bible teaches that one will come up among those 10 and uproot 3 of them. The one that does that is going to be the Antichrist, because the Bible goes on to say in chapter 7 that he waxed great and he persecuted the saints for time, times, and half a time until the Ancient of Days came. So it gives us a pretty clear picture. So, you know, maybe a few months from now or 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be able to look back and say, well, maybe that did have something. Right now, I don't quite see that the fall of Merkel and the fall of Prime Minister May would fulfill that right now. We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. All right. Will you continue on praying for you? Love your ministry. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it so very much. If you'd like to be on the air with us, we do have some open lines today. The number to call is 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. Let's go up to Ohio. Wayne is calling. Hello, Wayne.
Hello, yeah. They pushed the peace agreement. They pushed the peace agreement back to the late part of this year. What month will it take place?
Well, Wayne, what they're planning is the elections in Israel will be September the 17th. Now, Trump is anxious to go ahead and get this peace plan on the table because he's got to run for re-election next November. So the last 6 months before the election, he's going to be in full campaign mode. He would love to get something done before that particular time. So we don't know exactly when they're going to release the political portion. Kushner said he could actually put something out as early as next week. I don't know whether they will wait until the formation of the new Israeli government or not, but let's just speculate for a moment. It looks like
what that something of next week could be.
Well, let me talk a little bit more to you here, Wayne, because as I spoke during the first part of the program, there's a chance there's going to be a grand coalition in Israel, a union between the conservative and the liberal, because Netanyahu, for the last couple of governments, has depended on what they call the extreme right that says we will never surrender 1 inch of property. And they're truly correct in that stance. But the Bible teaches Israel is going to surrender property. And as long as Netanyahu depends on the right-wing parties to support his government, he could never negotiate a deal like the Bible talks about.
Get another government.
Okay, so but if after these elections, there's talk that maybe the liberals and the conservatives among the Likud under Netanyahu's leadership would come together and they would form a national unity government. If they did that, the blue and white, they're already in favor of trading land, creating a Palestinian state. So they're in favor of what could well be a part of Trump's peace plan. We're going to have to wait and see how it all turns out, Wayne. But anyway.
When will they have another government?
They're going to have another government. The elections are September the 17th. And once that happens, then, because no party ever gets 61 seats in the Knesset, and that's how many you have to implement a government. So the biggest party then has to be assigned by the president to negotiate with other parties to put together this coalition that comes up to 61 votes or more. So that normally takes about another month or two. So we're sort of looking probably at the latter part of October or the first part of November. We're going to have to wait and see how that breaks out. Listen, Wayne, I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much for your call. Once again, we will be taking your calls in the last segment of our program. The number for you to call to be on the air with me, 877 Endtime. And we do have open lines today, so if you're out there and would like to talk to us, just give us a call. Now I want to back up a little bit because it's so critical to understand how Trump has done an end run around all the things that's blocked peace efforts before. He's done an end run around that, and he's put together a whole new approach to Middle East peace. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as soon as we get back from this particular break. You're listening to End of the Age. 877 End Time's the number to call.
Many Christians admit end-time Bible prophecy is very complex and difficult to understand, and for some, a little bit scary. But what if you could understand Bible prophecy? What if you could know what will happen and how the United States will play a key role during end-time events? When you call today and get Understanding the End Time DVD curriculum, you can have peace about what is to come while understanding the prophetic events that appear in our headlines every day. When you call or go online to endtime.com and order, you'll learn the answer to the biggest prophecy question of all. Will the rapture take place, and when will it happen? This 14-part DVD series is the definitive end-time prophecy Bible study available. And for this limited time, you can get it for just $149. Don't miss this special offer. Understanding the End Time. Call now. 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME. Or go to endtime.com today.
$877 End Time is the number for you to call to be on the program with us. And we will be taking your calls in this last portion of our program. 877-363-8463. Now, I want to make sure we all understand that the traditional approach to peace in the Middle East over the last 70 years has been, excuse me, the traditional approach has been get the Palestinians and the Israelis at the table and try to pound out a deal. Well, Trump has looked at that and seen that it doesn't work. So he's done some thinking out of the box. The first thing he did, his first overseas trip after becoming president, was to Saudi Arabia. He already had in his mind plans. If I can get Saudi Arabia, which has the oil riches that makes it a center of Arab influence, and then the United Arab Emirates, and then Bahrain, and then Jordan, and then Egypt, if I can get all of them to agree to a peace plan, they then in turn could pressure the Palestinians because they're the basic powers that support the Palestinians and keep Mahmoud Abbas in power. So that was the approach that Trump used. He's still on that path, and it now looks like perhaps it's working. Now, the one thing that's stopping it is the rumor is that Trump will never offer a two-state solution because he's never publicly committed to that. Saudi Arabia, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, has said, oh yes, the Trump plan is going to allow for a two-state solution. So if that is in fact true, and if the leaders of these nations are whispering in Abbas's ear, then we may understand why Abbas is sending a commission to Washington, D.C. this next week or so to mend fences. We may be prepared for the resumption of peace talks and possibly a peace deal. Now think about this. It could really happen yet in 2019. And I'll say one more time, if it does, if this peace agreement is signed, it will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the physical return of Jesus. Now, I've never given you a date. In the 20 years I've been on the air, I've never given you a date when Jesus will come back. But once they sign this peace agreement, and the peace agreement will have to put the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement, it will have to allow for the Jews to build their third temple. The agreement that does that is going to be the agreement that signals the beginning of the final 7 years. I will say to you at that time, we have just entered the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ. I've never done that in the history of Endtime Ministries. We actually launched Endtime Ministries in 1986. I've never done that, but I will be doing that whenever they get this deal signed. I can't say the date today because it's not a done deal yet. All I can tell you is, from all of my observations and all of my experience, it looks like we have a real shot right now at seeing this deal done within the next year or so. We'll have to wait and see. We may hit some kind of a blockade. It may be postponed another 2 years. I don't know. Anyway, we'll keep you abreast. Let's get right back to the phones now, and let's go to Washington. Ian is calling from Washington. Hello, Ian.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Welcome.
Pastor Baxter, I have kind of just a general concept about these end times that, it's going to be really, really tough. I mean, if you think about the beginning, somewhere before the beginning of this thing or during, the beginning of the 7 years, we got a World War III, which is a third of mankind dies, as you know. I mean, that I don't even know that we can fully grasp what reality is going to be like for the world after that. I mean, I actually heard the other day that there's suicides are up to the level of World War II. I didn't realize suicides were high during World War II, but they're high enough now where they actually matching World War II, and that was only 50-something million people killed. And then you move a little forward, and obviously we got a time proclaimed by Christ that talks about, the tribulation in Judea that is going to be worse than it ever has been or worse than it ever will be, which is kind of a mind-boggling concept because, we've had a lot of awful things, 70 AD and everything happened in the world. And the only thing I just kind of wanted to clarify, when you talk about this great revelation that all these people will be saved in the end times, and you talk about the people in heaven, or I think it's like Revelation, but you talk about the people dressed in white, and like a number that more than people can number. But aren't those martyrs? Aren't those people who've been kind of slain for the faith, like giving their lives up in the for their King and Christ?
Yeah, some of them, Ian, will be martyrs, and I don't know, Ian, whether you ever was required to read the book in school, The Tale of Two Cities. It sort of starts out like this: it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was a time of darkness, it was the time of light, it was a time of peace, it was a time of war. That's the kind of time that's ahead of us. So the question is, what should we do? Now, the apostles, 11 of the original 12 apostles were martyred themselves. And yet, they didn't emphasize their martyrdom, they emphasized their revival, because they didn't live for this life. They were totally sold out. So when we're totally sold out to revival and God's kingdom upon this earth, all these other things become somewhat inconsequential. And that's the reason there's got to be a massive revival of true dedication, true Christian commitment. And that's the reason that during these times ahead, that even though there will be some tough times, it will also be some of the best of times, because we are going to see the greatest revival the world's ever seen.
No, I agree with you completely. I think the only way I can look at it that has any is to be prepared. I think all of us have to be prepared to lose our lives to gain it. I mean, we have to almost be prepared. If you take that out of the equation, then there really is nothing to fear. If your life is all in,
and
then there's nothing to lose.
Ian, one more thing. We not only need to be willing to lose our lives as far as a martyr goes, but we need to be willing to lose our lives to the cause of evangelism. So, you know, the Apostle Paul was sold out to reaching the lost. That's where we've got to become. It has to consume us, and I do believe it will. I want to get right. Thanks a lot for your call, Ian. Appreciate it very much. Let's go to Texas now. Abby's calling from Texas. Hello, Abby.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Welcome.
My question is, some people believe in pre-trib, some mid-trib, and post-trib. And it's my understanding you believe in post-trib. What scripture substantiates your theory or belief?
Abby, open your Bible to Matthew chapter 24, verse number 29. And that's where Jesus said, immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars will fall from heaven, the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Then shall appear the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, and he will send forth his angels with a great sound of a trumpet and gather his elect from the four winds of heaven. That's the rapture. Then he went on to say in that chapter, two will be in the field, one will be taking the other left. Two will be grinding at the mill, the one will be taking the other left. Jesus gives us, in verse 29, the specific timing, immediately after the tribulation of those days. That's one scripture. There are many, but that's one scripture.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome. And by the way, all of you out there, if you would like a 1-hour study as to when the rapture will happen, we do have a DVD. You can order it right now. Pick up the phone and call us, 1-800-Endtime, and simply ask for the DVD. When will the rapture happen? And we go through it very carefully for 1 hour, and I know a lot of you are interested in that subject. Let's now go to Ohio. Robert's calling. Hello, Robert.
Irvin, thank you for taking my call.
Welcome.
Last week, Dave Robbins had a report on the program about Debka file, and he said that during that article on Debka file that the Russian submarine sank in the U.S. submarine up in Alaskan waters. I wonder if you had anything further about that. Is there any other development, or what was that story about?
Yeah, actually, Robert, what happened was apparently a Russian sub approached one of our ships, and we don't have the details. They're keeping it very quiet, except that 15 Russians died. And there was a commendation within the last 2 days from the Russian government thanking those 15 who died because they saved the world from a horrible disaster. Apparently, through their actions, they blocked off the nuclear portion of the submarine so that it did not result in a nuclear explosion, or else it could have contaminated the entire world. That's an article I just read within the last 2 days or so. That's all we know about it right now. We do not know whether our ship was actually damaged or not. But nevertheless, that's what I do know about it right now, Robert.
I thank you very much.
Okay.
I thought that might start a war, but thank you very much.
Well, we're flirting with war on a lot of fronts right now. Iran just today tried to intercept a tanker. Well, every oil tanker that's going through the Strait of Hormuz is now being accompanied by a warship either from France, Great Britain, or the United States. Plus, we have planes flying overhead. And there were 5 of the Iranian small boats closed in on this ship to try to capture it and make it go to the shore. And whenever the accompanied British warship trained its guns on the 5 Iranian boats and give them a verbal warning, they all turned tail and ran. So that was something that just happened today. We could see war break out at any time. It really is a perilous time. I want to get one more call in, and let's go to Randy from Texas. Hello, Randy.
Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
First-time caller. My question is, what the scenario that you went through at the very first of your show, my question is with the peace talks as what they could be as far as the date in November, possibility, speculatory answer is, my question is, with Trump being behind this, is this going to pretty much, sum up the, I guess, the election here in the United States to where everybody will be feeling more safe during the peace talks when they possibly realize about prophecy this could open up the last 7 years?
Randy, if a peace treaty is signed between now and the U.S. elections, undoubtedly President Trump would be awarded a Nobel Peace Prize because it's going to be considered an unprecedented achievement. It could well push forward his election victory during the 2020 elections. We're going to have to wait and see how that goes, but it would have a dramatic effect, I'm sure. Okay, thank you very much. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we're out of time. I'm sorry to leave some calls on the screen. Please call back tomorrow. Tomorrow is open line, and we'll be right here. So thank you very much for your participation again today. I want to say to all of you out there, I consider you the front lines. All of you that are regular listeners, I know many of you, when you call, you have very well-educated questions. You're not novices when it comes to Bible prophecy because you've been listening for a long time. We are counting on you in your families, in your churches, in your communities, in every way. We are counting on you to really come to the front when this peace agreement is signed. Please educate yourself so that you will understand how to talk the talk, because your family's going to need it, your churches are going to need it, your fellow employees are going to need it, your neighbors are going to need it. Please get yourself ready, and I again recommend to you, enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College, JerusalemProphecyCollege.com. God bless you all. So glad to be back with you. We'll see you tomorrow.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.